When I woke up from the surgery, the first thing I saw was a nurse hovering over me, her face pale with confusion. She glanced at the clipboard in her hands, then back at me, shaking her head as though she had stumbled into something she shouldn't have. I was groggy, my mouth dry, my body heavy from the anesthesia, but I managed to hear her whisper under her breath, "Why would your sister approve that procedure?" My heart skipped. My sister. What did she have to do with this? I hadn't signed away any control of my medical decisions. I never would. The room felt colder suddenly, and panic clawed its way through the haze in my brain. I tried to sit up, but pain shot through my side like fire. My fingers trembled as they reached toward my abdomen, and I felt fresh bandages pressing against my skin. Something had been done, something I hadn't agreed to. The nurse seemed to realize she had said too much, her eyes darting nervously before she forced a smile that didn't reach her lips. She mumbled something about resting and hurried out of the room, leaving me drowning in fear and questions. Why would my sister make such a choice for me? What exactly had been done to my body while I was unconscious? And more importantly, what kind of betrayal had just unfolded in the operating room without my knowledge? The answers wouldn't come easily. They would demand painful discoveries, hidden truths, and a confrontation that could destroy the fragile threads of family I thought I could trust. Little did I know that nurse's slip of the tongue was just the beginning of the darkest chapter of my life. The first thing I remember after waking up was the sound of a beeping monitor, steady and calm, mocking me with its rhythm while my own pulse raced out of control. My eyelids felt heavy, as if they were weighed down by stones, but when I forced them open, the sterile brightness of the hospital room burned into my eyes. For a few seconds, I couldn't remember where I was or what had happened. Then the sharp sting in my side pulled me back to reality. Surgery. I had gone in for a minor procedure, nothing life-threatening, something that was supposed to be straightforward and safe. I tried to swallow, but my throat was parched, raw from the breathing tube they must have used. A nurse was standing over me, adjusting the drip that ran into my arm. She glanced down, saw my eyes open, and gave me a professional smile. But it wasn't her expression that unsettled me. It was the look that flashed across her face just before the smile appeared. A flicker of doubt, hesitation, maybe even regret. I blinked, thinking I might have imagined it, but then she muttered something under her breath. I wasn't meant to hear it, but the words slipped out like a secret too heavy to keep. Why would your sister approve that procedure? At first, I thought I'd misheard her. My mind, foggy from anesthesia, must have scrambled the words. But the way she stiffened, the way her hand froze on the 4-line, told me I had heard her correctly. My chest tightened, panic stirring in the hollow of my stomach. My sister. Why would she have anything to do with this? I had signed all the forms myself, spoken with the doctor, given clear instructions. There was no reason Clara should be involved, no reason she should have authority over my body. What did you say? I croaked, my voice hoarse. The nurse blinked rapidly, as though scrambling to erase what had just escaped her lips. Nothing. You should rest now. Don't strain yourself. The surgery went well. She forced another smile, but this one was thinner, fragile, as if it might crack if I looked at her too long. Before I could ask again, she turned away quickly, checking the machines with unnecessary fuss, then left the room without meeting my eyes. Alone in the silence, I tried to piece together the fragments of memory. I remembered being wheeled into the operating room, the cool mask pressed to my face, the rush of anesthesia pulling me under. Everything after that was blank, a void. I reached down carefully, my fingers brushing against thick bandages wrapped around my abdomen. The pain radiating from beneath them was sharper, deeper than I expected. It didn't feel like the minor procedure I'd agreed to. Something more had been done, something I hadn't consented to. My thoughts spiraled. What could she have meant? Why would Clara approve anything? The word approve stuck in my mind like a thorn. It suggested authority, permission. It suggested I hadn't been the one in control. My body ached, but the fear digging into me was worse than the physical pain. I closed my eyes, trying to calm myself, but every time I drifted near sleep, The nurse's words echoed louder. When the door opened again, I tensed, hoping it was the nurse coming back with answers. But it wasn't. It was Clara. My sister strolled in, her heels clicking against the floor, her perfume sharp and sweet in the sterile air. She carried herself with that same confidence she always did, her head high, her smile wide. "Well, look who's awake," she said brightly, placing her bag on the chair beside the bed. "You scared us for a moment, but you're fine now." I stared at her, my throat dry, anger bubbling up through the fog of medication. "Clara, what did you do?" Her smile faltered for just a second, then returned, smooth and practiced. "What do you mean?" "You had your surgery, that's all. Everything went fine." "No," my voice cracked, but I pushed harder. "The nurse said you approved something. She said you signed off on it." "Why would you?" She waved her hand, cutting me off. "Oh, don't worry about that. It was just paperwork. You were under anesthesia, and the doctors had a few things they needed cleared. I handled it. That's all. Nothing for you to get upset about." My heart pounded harder. Nothing for me to get upset about. I tried to sit up, but pain ripped through my side, forcing me back down. My eyes burned with frustration. "Clara, this was my surgery. My decision. What exactly did you approve?" She leaned over, placing her hand lightly on my arm, as if to calm me. "You're overthinking. It was the same procedure, just slightly adjusted. The doctors thought it was better for your long-term health. They said the risks were manageable, and I agreed. You'll thank me later." Her tone was soothing, but the words hit me like ice water. Slightly adjusted. She was speaking as if she had the right to make choices for me, as if my consent was optional. I wanted to scream at her, demand the truth, but the drugs in my system made everything feel heavy, pulling me down. "Clara." My voice was weaker now, but the desperation in it was unmistakable. "What did they do?" Her smile returned, but her eyes betrayed her. They darted away from mine for the briefest second, then back again. "Rest," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead like I was a child. "We can talk later. You need to heal." Before I could argue, she stood up, grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. She paused with her hand on the handle and looked back, her smile thinner now, forced. "Trust me, this was for your own good." Then she slipped out, leaving me drowning in questions and dread. The room felt suffocating. My chest rose and fell rapidly, my heart hammering. The nurse's whisper replayed in my mind. "Why would your sister approve that procedure? Not could, not should, would. It was intentional. Clara had chosen something for me. Something serious enough that the staff questioned it." My abdomen throbbed with every shallow breath, reminding me of the unknown changes stitched into my body. The hours dragged, each second stretching like an eternity. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting machines, but none stayed long enough for me to ask what I wanted to. Their answers were vague, rehearsed, as though they had been instructed to say nothing. My mind clawed at possibilities. What had they cut? What had they taken? What had they changed? The uncertainty gnawed at me, more painful than the wound itself. By the time night fell, I was trembling, caught between exhaustion and fear. The morphine dulled the edges of the pain but sharpened the paranoia. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the steady beep of the monitor, the distant footsteps in the hall, the occasional rattle of a cart. I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me was different, something I hadn't chosen. I pressed my hand lightly against the bandages, shivering at the thought of what lay beneath. I thought about Clara, her wide smile, her easy charm, her way of slipping through life as though everything should bend to her will. She had always been persuasive, always managed to talk people into giving her what she wanted. But this was beyond manipulation. This was my body, my life. What gave her the right? As the night deepened, I knew one thing for certain. The truth wouldn't come from Clara's lips. She had already shown me she was capable of hiding the darkest things behind a smile. If I wanted answers, I'd have to find them myself. And when I did, I feared those answers would change everything I thought I knew about my sister. I closed my eyes, though sleep didn't come easy. The pain, the fear, the betrayal, all of it pressed down on me. And in the darkness, the nurse's words echoed one last time, sealing themselves into my memory. Why would your sister approve that procedure? That question would become the beginning of the most terrifying journey of my life. Morning came slowly, with a pale light of dawn spilling through the narrow blinds and settling across the hospital room. I woke not from rest but from uneasy dreams filled with whispers, shadows, and the constant echo of that one haunting question. My throat felt dry, my muscles heavy, but my mind was sharper than the night before. The fog of anesthesia had lifted slightly, leaving in its place a raw hunger for answers. I pressed the button on the bed to sit myself up, wincing as the movement pulled against the wound in my abdomen. The pain was sharp, but I welcomed it. It was real, tangible, unlike the storm of uncertainty swirling in my head. When the door opened, it was a different nurse this time, younger, her voice calm as she checked my vitals. I studied her face, looking for cracks, hints, anything she might accidentally reveal. How was the surgery? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual, though my heart hammered against my ribs. Her eyes flickered for a brief second, then softened into a professional smile. The operation was successful. The doctors made some adjustments, but you're stable now. Healing will take time, but you'll be fine. Adjustments. That word again. It gnawed at me like a rat chewing through walls. I swallowed hard, my voice rasping. What kind of adjustments? She hesitated, her hand tightening on the clipboard. I think the doctor will explain it better when he makes rounds. I'm not supposed to. Her voice trailed off. She gave me a quick, almost apologetic glance before busying herself with the 4-line. The silence between us grew heavy. I wanted to press her, but something in her posture told me she wouldn't say more. Instead, I bit down on my questions, though they burned on my tongue. She finished her tasks quickly and left, the door clicking shut behind her. I was alone again, but not for long. Clara arrived just after breakfast. She breezed into the room as though nothing was wrong, carrying a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. She looked perfect as always, her hair neatly tied back, her outfit crisp and effortless. She sat down on the chair by my bed, crossing her legs, and flashed me a smile that was too bright. You look better today, she said, taking a sip of her drink. Color's back in your face. I stared at her, silent for a moment, then asked flatly, what did you sign? Her smile faltered, then returned with a careful polish. We went over this yesterday. You were out, they needed consent, so I handled it. End of story. No, I said, my voice firmer. Not end of story. What did you approve? What did they do to me that I didn't agree to? She sighed, leaning back in her chair as though I were a child throwing a tantrum. Why are you being so dramatic? The doctors thought it would be better to do a more comprehensive procedure. The one you wanted wasn't addressing everything. They explained the risks. I listened, I agreed. You're alive, aren't you? You should be grateful. The room went cold around me. Grateful. The word rang in my ears like an insult. I clenched my fists, ignoring the ache in my abdomen. You had no right. This is my body, Clara. My choice. Not yours. For the first time her mask slipped. Her eyes hardened, sharp and glinting. You're always so sure of yourself, always acting like you know what's best. Maybe it's about time someone else made decisions for you. Someone who can see the bigger picture. Her words sliced through me. They weren't about concern. They were about control. I could feel the shift in her tone, the undercurrent of resentment I had missed before. My sister wasn't just covering for a mistake. She was defending her choice to override me. I swallowed back the anger rising in my chest. What did they do, Clara? Tell me the truth. But she only stood, smoothing her jacket, her smile pasted back onto her face. You'll find out soon enough when the doctor talks to you. I don't need to explain every little thing. She picked up her coffee, slung her bag over her shoulder, and headed for the door. Before she left, she glanced back, her voice sugar-sweet but her eyes icy. Trust me, it was for your own good. The door shut, and I was left shaking, not from weakness but from rage. Every instinct screamed that something terrible had been done, something irreversible, and Clara was at the center of it. By mid-morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. When another nurse came to check on me, I asked again, pushing harder this time. I need to know exactly what was done. Please. I have a right to know. She hesitated, her lips pressed tightly together. Then she glanced at the door, as though to make sure no one was listening. The doctor will explain officially, she whispered. But it wasn't the procedure you originally signed for. There were additional steps, more invasive. That's all I can say. My stomach lurched. More invasive. The words rattled in my skull. I grabbed her wrist weakly, my hand trembling. What steps? What did they do? She pulled back gently, shaking her head. I'm sorry. You'll have to wait. And with that, she left me suffocating in dread once more. I felt trapped by the bandages around my body, by the hospital walls, by the secrets being kept from me. The minutes dragged like hours until finally, the doctor entered. He was a tall man with graying hair. His expression calm but cautious as he stood at the foot of my bed. How are you feeling? He asked. Confused, I shot back. And angry. I want to know exactly what procedure you performed. What did my sister sign for? He hesitated, flipping through the chart in his hands. The original plan was to remove the small growth we discussed, minimally invasive. But during the examination, your sister authorized us to perform a more extensive procedure. We conducted a partial organ removal to reduce the risk of future complications. It was more aggressive, but in her words, the safer choice for long-term health. The room tilted around me. Partial organ removal. My breath caught in my throat, sharp and painful. I had agreed only to a minor surgery, a simple removal. Instead, my body had been altered in a way I hadn't chosen. My sister had signed away a piece of me. The doctor continued speaking, but his words blurred into meaningless noise. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat, the rush of blood in my ears. A piece of me was gone, carved out without my consent. Clara had stolen that choice, stolen that control. When the doctor finally left, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, tears burning behind my eyes. Betrayal wrapped itself around my chest like chains, tightening with every breath. Clara hadn't saved me. She had violated me. By evening I knew one thing. This wasn't about medicine. This wasn't about my health. This was about power, about Clara's need to control me, to make decisions in my place, to prove she could shape my life in ways I couldn't stop. And now she had succeeded. But as I lay there, fury and grief tangling inside me, a spark of resolve began to grow. She thought she had silenced me, reduced me. But she was wrong. The truth was out there, buried beneath her lies and charm, and I would uncover every piece of it. Because one thing was certain. If Clara had gone this far once, there was no telling what else she might be willing to do. And I wasn't about to let her destroy me again. The next morning, I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway and the soft chatter of nurses changing shifts. My body ached, heavy and fragile, but my mind was sharp now, sharpened by anger and fear. The truth had been revealed in fragments, enough to confirm my worst suspicion. Clara had made a decision for me. One that had cut deeper than any scalpel. She had stolen something from me, something I couldn't get back. As the minutes passed, I found myself replaying every conversation I'd had with her. The way she dismissed my questions, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, the way she insisted it was for my own good. None of it was love. It was control dressed up as care. Clara had always been like that, hadn't she? Subtle, calculating, making choices in my name when it suited her. As kids, she would help me with homework by erasing my answers and replacing them with her own, then smugly telling Mom she had saved me from mistakes. As adults, she would tell friends what I liked or disliked before I could answer, as if she owned my voice. I had laughed it off before. Now it felt like a warning I should have paid attention to. The door opened quietly, pulling me from my thoughts. It wasn't Clara this time, but the younger nurse from the day before. She gave me a cautious smile and set a tray down beside me. "Breakfast," she said, adjusting the bed so I could sit up. "Wait," I said quickly before she could leave. My voice was still hoarse, but it carried urgency. "Please, you need to tell me the full truth. What exactly did my sister approve?" Her eyes darted to the door. For a moment she looked torn, caught between duty and conscience. Then she lowered her voice. "I shouldn't say this, but you deserve to know. The surgery you agreed to was minor, yes. But your sister pushed for something more aggressive. They removed part of an organ. Not because it was necessary right now, but because she insisted it would prevent future illness. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't critical. But she convinced them." The words hit harder than I expected, even though I'd suspected them. My chest tightened. She convinced them. How could the doctors even listen to her? The nurse sighed, her expression grim. "She had power of attorney forms. At least, temporary ones. She said you had discussed it, that you trusted her to make choices for you." I felt my heart drop into a pit of disbelief. That's a lie. I never gave her that authority. Never. The nurse's eyes softened with sympathy. Then she forged something. Or she found a loophole. Can't say. All I know is she seemed very sure of herself. And the doctors didn't question it. She straightened, her face tightening again into neutrality. "That's all I can tell you. Please don't say I said anything." I nodded weakly, but inside I was burning. Forgery. Manipulation. Clara had gone further than I imagined. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate deceit. She had carved her control into my body with signatures and lies. After the nurse left, I sat in silence, trembling. My sister hadn't just betrayed me. She had stolen my autonomy, forged my trust into a weapon. And now, she walked around smiling as if she had done me a favor. When Clara finally arrived that afternoon, I was ready. She swept in with her usual flair, carrying flowers this time, a picture of the devoted sister. "I thought these might brighten the room," she said cheerfully, setting the bouquet on the table. "Cut the act," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Her smile flickered. "What act?" "I know what you did," I snapped. "You forged papers. You gave yourself the right to sign for me. You lied to the doctors. You had them cut into me, remove something I never consented to. Do you even hear yourself, Clara? You took away my choice." For the first time, her mask cracked completely. Her face hardened, her jaw tightening as her eyes narrowed. "Oh, stop pretending you're a victim. You never see what's really going on. You make reckless choices, you trust the wrong people, you put yourself at risk. Someone had to step in. Someone had to protect you from yourself." "Protect me." My voice rose, trembling with rage. "By mutilating me? By taking away my right to decide what happens to my own body? You didn't protect me. You controlled me." Her eyes glistened, but not with tears. With fury. "You've always had everything. Attention. Praise. People listening to you. Do you know what it feels like to be the shadow? To always be the one overlooked. You think you're so strong, so independent, but you're fragile. And if it weren't for me, you'd fall apart." Her confession left me stunned. This wasn't about medicine. It wasn't about saving me. It was about jealousy, about resentment that had festered for years. She had turned envy into justification. "You're sick," I whispered. Her lips curled into a smile, cold and sharp. "No, I'm smart. Smarter than you realize. And one day you'll thank me for it." She left before I could respond, leaving the flowers behind like a mockery. I stared at them, their petals too bright, too cheerful, as if mocking my pain. My stomach twisted, my wound aching, but it was nothing compared to the storm in my chest. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Clara's face, her eyes blazing with resentment, her smile curling with satisfaction. I imagined the doctors leaning over me, making incisions I hadn't agreed to, my sister's forged consent sitting in their files as if it were truth. I imagined her holding the pen, her hand steady as she stole my voice. The more I thought about it, the more one realization grew clear. Clara wasn't finished. She could do this once, she could do it again. She had tasted control and she liked it. The forged papers, the fake authority. What was to stop her from using it again? By dawn I made a decision. I couldn't stay passive, lying in this bed while she circled me like a predator. I had to protect myself. I had to uncover everything she had done. Every lie, every document, every step she had taken behind my back. Only then could I stop her. But fear lingered too. Because deep down, I knew that chasing the truth might unravel not just my trust in her but the very fabric of family itself. Clara wasn't just a sister anymore. She was an enemy hiding in plain sight, wrapped in the disguise of blood ties. And I would need every ounce of strength left in me to face her, and to survive whatever came next. By the time another day had passed, the hospital room felt less like a place of healing and more like a prison cell. Every time I shifted, the pain in my abdomen reminded me of what had been taken from me, and every time I thought of Clara, the fury inside me deepened. I had resolved to uncover the truth, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. Clara was cunning, too cunning to leave obvious evidence in the open. If she had forged documents, there had to be a trail. Signatures, witnesses, maybe even bribes. The only way to protect myself was to expose her. The opportunity came unexpectedly when one of the hospital administrators visited my room late in the morning. He was a middle-aged man with silver glasses, his tone brisk but polite. "Just checking in on you," he said. "We understand there were some questions about your consent forms." My heart leapt. This was it, my chance. I sat up straighter, ignoring the sharp ache in my side. "Yes, questions. I want to see every document related to my surgery. Every form, every signature. I need to see what my sister signed." He looked taken aback by my firmness but nodded slowly. "That can be arranged. We'll need some time to gather the files." "Do it," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "And bring them directly to me." He agreed and left, and I sank back against the pillows, my chest rising and falling heavily. For the first time, I felt a sliver of control slipping back into my hands. If I had proof, if I could hold Clara's lies in black and white, then she wouldn't be able to hide behind her sweet words anymore. Clara appeared in the afternoon, right on schedule, as if she were rehearsing the role of the devoted sister. She carried another bouquet, this one of white lilies. Their scent filled the room, cloying and suffocating. "You shouldn't have bothered," I said coldly, staring at the flowers. Her smile didn't waver. "I wanted to. You're my sister. You deserve something beautiful." "Beautiful?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You think flowers cover up what you did?" Her expression tightened, but she quickly smoothed it over. "You're still recovering. You don't understand yet, but in time you will. One day you'll realize I saved you." I fixed my eyes on hers, refusing to blink. "You didn't save me, Clara. You betrayed me. And when the truth comes out, everyone will see it." Something flickered in her gaze. Fear maybe, but she masked it with a scoff. "Truth. The truth is that you're alive because of me. Do you think anyone will take your side when I tell them you're ungrateful, confused, still under the effects of anesthesia? No one will believe you." Her words chilled me. She wasn't just manipulating me. She was already planning to manipulate everyone else. She wanted to rewrite reality, to make herself the hero and me the villain. "You underestimate me," I said quietly. For the first time, her smile broke entirely. Her jaw clenched, her eyes narrowing into slits. "Don't push me," she hissed. Then she grabbed her bag and stormed out, the lilies still sitting between us like a sick joke. When she left, my body trembled, not from weakness but from adrenaline. Clara had shown her hand. She wasn't going to back down. She was prepared to destroy me if it meant preserving her version of the story. Later that evening, the administrator returned with a folder in his hands. He set it down on the tray beside my bed. "These are the forms you asked for. I shouldn't be doing this, but given the circumstances, I think you deserve to see them. My hands shook as I reached for the folder, my bandaged fingers brushing over the cool surface. I opened it slowly, my heart pounding louder with each page I turned. And there it was. My signature, neat and steady, on the original consent form for a minor procedure. Then another page. Clara's handwriting. Her name scrawled where mine should have been. The date and time clearly after I had been put under anesthesia. She had written, approved by sister with medical power of attorney. Tears stung my eyes as I stared at the page. She had forged my trust into a weapon, inked it onto paper, and used it to take my choice away. I looked up at the administrator, my voice trembling. This is a crime. She forged this. I never gave her any power of attorney. He frowned, adjusting his glasses. If that's true, then we have a very serious problem. The hospital could face legal consequences. But more importantly, you could pursue charges. Do you want us to open an investigation? I nodded firmly, wiping the tears from my cheeks. Yes, do it. I want this exposed. After he left, I sat in silence with the folder on my lap. It felt heavier than paper, heavier than ink. It was the proof of everything I had feared, and it was also my weapon. For the first time since waking up, I felt like I had a way forward. But the victory was short-lived. Late that night, when the halls were quiet and most of the lights dimmed, my door creaked open. I turned my head, expecting a nurse, but it was Clara. She slipped inside silently, her face pale and her eyes hard. You went digging, she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. You couldn't leave it alone. My chest tightened. The folder was still beside me on the tray. Her eyes flicked to it immediately. You have no idea what you've started, she continued, stepping closer. Do you think anyone will believe you over me? I've always been the one people trust. You're weak now. Vulnerable. Who do you think they'll side with? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet her gaze. They'll believe the truth. Have the papers. Your lies are written in ink. Her lips curled into a cold smile. Papers can disappear. She moved toward the folder, but I pressed my hand down on it despite the pain shooting through my arm. Touch this and I'll scream so loud the whole hospital will come running. For a moment we stood locked in silence, her glare burning into me. Then she stepped back, her smile returning, chilling and calm. Fine. Keep your little papers. But remember, I always find a way to come out on top. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that slithered into my ear. And I'm not done with you yet. Then she straightened, smoothed her dress, and walked out as silently as she had come, leaving the scent of her perfume behind like a ghost. When the door closed, I let out the breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My heart raced, my palms were slick with sweat, and the pain in my side throbbed with every beat. Clara wasn't just dangerous, she was unpredictable. She had crossed the line once, and she had no intention of stopping. I stared at the folder again, its pages glowing under the dim hospital light. This was my shield, my proof, my only defense against her. But deep inside, I knew proof alone wouldn't be enough. Clara was clever, manipulative, and ruthless. If I wanted to survive her, I'd have to be stronger, smarter, and willing to fight in ways I never had before. As the night stretched on, one thought became clear. Clara may have taken something from me in that operating room, but she hadn't taken everything. She hadn't taken my will. And as long as I had that, this war between sisters had only just begun. The morning after Clara's late-night visit, I felt as if I had aged years overnight. My body was weak, my incision throbbed, but my mind was sharper than it had been since the day I opened my eyes after surgery. The folder with the forged documents was still beside me, untouched. I had hardly slept, my hand resting protectively on it as if it were a lifeline. I knew I couldn't keep it hidden forever. Clara would make another attempt. Maybe tonight, maybe in a week, but she wouldn't stop until she had destroyed the evidence. If I wanted to end this nightmare, I had to act before she did. By mid-morning, I requested a meeting with the hospital's legal department. 2 representatives came, both wearing stiff suits and carrying clipboards. They asked gentle but firm questions, listening carefully as I explained how Clara had tricked the hospital into performing a surgery I had never consented to. When I showed them the forged form, they exchanged uneasy looks, whispering in low voices as they examined the shaky scrawl of Clara's signature. "This is extremely serious," one of them said finally. "If what you're saying is true, your sister could face charges for fraud, and the hospital may also be liable for malpractice. We'll need to conduct a full internal review. Do you want to press charges against her?" "Yes," I said without hesitation, my voice low but steady. "She betrayed me. She stole from me. And if she gets away with this, she'll hurt me again or someone else." They nodded, promising to take the matter to the authorities immediately. I watched them leave with the folder in hand, a strange mix of relief and dread twisting in my stomach. I had given away my only shield, but I had also placed the burden on people with the power to act. All I could do now was wait and prepare. Clara didn't come that afternoon, which was unusual. My chest tightened with suspicion. Had she already guessed I'd exposed her? Was she out there somewhere, plotting her next move? Every creak of the door made me tense. Every set of footsteps in the hallway made my heart skip. By evening the answer came. The police arrived at my room. 2 officers stepped inside, their expressions grim but professional. "We'd like to ask you some questions about your sister," one said. They explained that they had already tried to locate Clara, but she hadn't returned home. Her phone was off, her car missing. She had vanished. I wasn't surprised. Clara was many things, but predictable wasn't one of them. If she knew the law was closing in, she would run before she would surrender. Still, the thought chilled me. A runaway Clara was even more dangerous than one confined by hospital walls. 2 days passed, and the hospital prepared to discharge me into temporary rehabilitation care. I was still fragile, but strong enough to move, and they wanted the bed for other patients. I felt a strange unease packing up my things, even though the nurses helped. Hospitals were supposed to be safe, but I no longer trusted walls, locks, or even daylight to protect me from Clara's reach. On the morning of my discharge, as I waited in the wheelchair near the sliding doors, I saw her, Clara, standing across the street. Her hair was loose, her clothes plain, but her eyes were fixed on me. She didn't smile this time. She didn't wave. She just stared, her face unreadable, as if she were carving my image into her mind. Fear surged through me. The nurse wheeling me must have noticed my stiff posture because she asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded quickly, even though my insides screamed. By the time I dared look again, Clara was gone. The rehab center was quiet, tucked into a leafy part of town where the air smelled faintly of pine. The staff were kind, and the days slipped into a routine of slow walks, gentle stretches, and careful meals. For a while, I almost convinced myself that maybe Clara had really run. Maybe she had fled to another state, another country, somewhere far enough that her shadow could no longer touch me. But deep down I knew better. Clara thrived on control. She wouldn't leave as long as she thought there was still a way to win. The proof came on the 3rd night. I woke to the sound of someone tapping at the window. At first, I thought it was just a tree branch scraping in the wind. But when I turned my head, my blood ran cold. Clara stood outside the glass, her face pale in the moonlight, her lips moving silently. She mouthed words I couldn't fully hear but knew well enough. "This isn't over." I screamed, loud enough to bring the night staff rushing into my room. By the time they turned on the lights and looked out the window, she was gone again. The staff called the police, who increased security around the building. But Clara was slippery. She was everywhere and nowhere. For days, I lived in constant dread, jumping at shadows, checking locks twice, never sleeping more than an hour at a time. Then, 1 week later, it ended. The police called early in the morning. They had found Clara. She had been hiding out in an abandoned house 2 towns over, surviving on canned food and sheer defiance. When they tried to arrest her, she had lashed out, screaming about how I had stolen her life, how she was the one who deserved everything. They had taken her into custody after a violent struggle. The relief that washed over me was indescribable. For the first time since I had woken from surgery, I could breathe without feeling a knife pressed against my ribs. Months later, I sat in a courtroom, watching as Clara was brought before the judge. Her once perfect hair was matted, her face pale and drawn. But her eyes, those eyes still burned with fury, as if she couldn't accept that her empire of lies had crumbled. The evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents, the testimonies from hospital staff, the trail of her disappearance. It all painted a picture of guilt too clear to deny. The judge's words were final. Clara was sentenced to years in prison for fraud, forgery, and endangerment. As they led her away, she turned her head sharply, locking her gaze on me one last time. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice echoing in the silent courtroom. But for me it was. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. Clara had stolen something from me that could never be returned, but she hadn't destroyed me. She had underestimated my strength, my will to fight back. For once, I wasn't her shadow or her victim. I was free. In the months that followed, I focused on healing, not just my body but my spirit. I took slow walks in the park, learned how to laugh again, and allowed myself to dream of a future that belonged to me alone. Sometimes late at night I would think of Clara. I would wonder if she still plotted from her cell, if her mind still churned with schemes. But those thoughts no longer had the power to paralyze me. Because no matter what she whispered, no matter what threats she had left hanging in the air, I knew the truth. I had survived her. And survival in the end was the greatest victory of all. Sparkles, if this story gripped you, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Television, subscribe to Twisted Fate Chronicle for more shocking and unforgettable stories every week.